So this is our meeting with Leslie Reeves, our Assistant Principal of Academic Affairs for St. Thomas, and we're discussing St. Thomas's relationship with the Catholic Schools Office of Dallas in terms of curriculum development, curriculum approval, and just kind of what kind of autonomy the school has and how the diocese plays a role in that. So my first question to you is, what kind of autonomy or direction do you take from the diocese in terms of curriculum?
So all the schools in the diocese follow the curriculum standards that were developed using the TEKS.
Okay.
So the Catholic Schools Office is decentralized, so we're not required to follow a particular curriculum program when it comes to what resources we use to teach the curriculum standards. But we do send one teacher from every school, and they're called the curriculum champion, and they meet with the director of curriculum at the diocese, and they collect all the information. So this year they've compiled a list from every school of what curricular resources they use. There's not really a rating system involved. We make sure that ours, whatever curriculum we use, is aligned to the TEKS. We also have the advantage of our teachers being able to remediate or enrich using whatever resources they want. They don't have to get a workbook or a textbook and start on page 1 and go to page 300. So there's some autonomy involved in know your students, understand the needs of your students, and adjust your teaching and your materials as needed to meet those needs. So that might mean that a teacher comes to me and says, hey, can you order 5 novels that are above grade level because I'm going to pull a group, and then that will come out of my textbook budget and I'll see that. But all of it has to kind of come through me so that I can make sure that it's aligned with the standards and that it is aligned with the teachings of the church.
Does the diocese come in at any point and check our alignment, or do they have any type of, you said they're decentralized, so they don't really come in and can say, hey, you're not being aligned here. I guess that's
the diocese has one person for 14 schools who oversees curriculum, and her job basically is to set up professional development for teachers, okay, to work with the curriculum champions that I mentioned and kind of help them. You know, what happens in Catholic schools sometimes is the principals are so busy with security, with facilities, with the interface with the parents and with the school board, that sometimes curriculum kind of falls by the wayside, right? So which is really should be where the starting point for everyone. So that's why these curriculum champions are there, to get the same information regarding curriculum that the principals receive, but to make sure that it gets disseminated to teachers. And that can range from, you're going to do, the first year we had curriculum champions, you're going to do one faculty meeting per quarter that goes over implementing the new standards, right? Those were all video based. We had access to that for our teachers to use, and then it kind of goes from there. So right now, really, the curriculum champion is more in a position to share information from the diocese that teachers get directly from the principals too, most of the time, not all the time, but also to share with the diocese kind of what more the needs are in different schools, and kind of a collaboration effort for us to share resources and share information.
So while we have you in charge of academic affairs, we have campuses that don't have the resources or have, what are some of the challenges they face with curriculum, development, or implementing new curriculum programs? What are some of the challenges they face, whereas maybe we don't have that problem because of our size and our resources?
Well, it varies. It depends on the school. So I've worked with the curriculum champions for a while. So sometimes it'll be a matter of a teacher will or the principal will pull together all the science teachers and then get samples from representatives, and then they'll meet and they'll make the selection. Sometimes the school will have a curriculum coordinator, and that person will work with vendors to come in and do presentations. That curriculum coordinator or development or curriculum director or assistant principal of academic affairs will verify that it aligns with the standards that we're required to teach. And also, in our instance, at least for our teachers, because we have such little attrition, teachers are here 10 or 15 years, they have a lot of experience, they know exactly best methods, best practices, And they've also had a lot of autonomy when it comes to, okay, there's no curriculum resource that you could get from a publisher that you would be able to teach all of it in the time you have available. It's impossible.
Not efficiently.
Teachers have to make instructional choices all the time. And even with a curriculum coordinator like me, as soon as the teacher's in the room and closes the door, they're going to do what they're going to do, right? My job is to kind of monitor that through their lesson plans, monitor that through their grade book, monitor that through observation. Sometimes monitor that with feedback from students and from parents. I'll hear from them too, and then we'll go in and have our conversation. We spend a lot of time with teachers talking about, does this align with our mission and our vision, right? Is this, because the focus should always be on continuous improvement, but it should also be on meeting the needs of the students you have right now.
Right.
And that's what we work towards.
So unlike a school district who might have a direct or superintendent or an assistant superintendent of curriculum with a team that probably visits campus, the diocese has a direct, for lack of a better words, a director of curriculum. However, their job is not necessarily to go into each campus and support.
They're not monitoring.
You have one person come and they disseminate information and go back to it.
Yep.
So when you're talking about alignment, do you have a formal process that you go through, like a system check for alignment, or do you have a...
Are you talking about alignment of our curriculum resources to the curriculum standards, or an alignment of what our teachers are teaching?
Well, let's start with curriculum resources to curriculum standards. Is there something that if someone brings to you that you have a formalized checklist that you're like, yes, this meets this, and do you have a process for that typically?
Well, I have our curriculum standards, right? So then I can go into the scope and sequence of any curricular resource that's given to me and see that it aligns. Most of the time it does. The newer the program, the more likely it is to align more completely. But we always tell our teachers, your job is not to teach whatever Savvis or HMH or McGraw-Hill gives you.
Right.
Your job is to teach the standards. So it's your responsibility to make sure that you cover the lessons in those curriculum resources that align directly with the standards. If they're not in there, then you come and see me and we get you more resources. But 9 times out of 10, they create their own resources for the standards that are not showing up. So I'm never going to, actually the new science, the TEKS for 2021 that were implemented this year, I've seen more direct alignment that's 100% in those than I've seen in other resources over the years.
So for alignment, I guess across grade levels, how do you check for
So at the beginning of the year, every teacher has to turn in a scope and sequence of when they're teaching. So our curriculum is we follow lead forward.
Okay.
And so what they do is break it down into units, right?
Right.
So ours is broken down into units. And so that way teachers have to tell me which quarter they're teaching which unit, which section of whatever textbook they're using, what additional resources they're going to use. So it's not specifically a pacing guide, but it should match when I'm in grade books and when I'm in lesson plans. It should match what they say. I'm going to hit all these standards by the end of the year and I'm going to do it in these quarters. We give our teachers a lot more flexibility in that area because we believe that you don't say, oh, you're going to learn fractions in 6 weeks. Sorry, 6 weeks is over. We're moving on. If they're not ready to move on, we're not moving on, right?
Yes.
They're going to keep teaching. They're going to go back if they need to reteach. Now, does that mean at some point we have to shorten something somewhere else? Yeah, that happens sometimes, but not, maybe your culminating activity that you're going to do at a unit isn't as long. Maybe a project, because most teachers have built in days in their schedule for enrichment activities, and some of that might get used up with instruction because they had to spend extra time on a unit.
If you could see a change from the diocese in terms of curriculum support, if you could just look and say you had the chance to make any improvement, what would something you'd like to see from the diocese for curriculum support for the schools?
I think they're starting to do it now by gathering all the information. I wouldn't say we're in competition per se with other Catholic schools, right? Because, they're parish-based schools. If you go to that church and you live in that parish, that's where you're going to send your kids to school.
Right.
But as the largest Catholic elementary school in the state, and our kids, we draw kids from all over, right? Because there's another Catholic school on the other side of the lake they could go to. So for us, it's more a matter of, it makes no sense if we're all part of the Diocese of Dallas for all 14 schools to have to invent the wheel, so to speak, every time, right? If you've done research on a math program, here's a perfect example. I'm looking at new science curriculums, and I'm talking to a couple of schools who are like, the teachers hate this particular program, right? And so my inclination is like, oh, okay, well, I'll get it and they can look at it, but I'll share that information, because sometimes, and this has happened at St. Thomas before I had this position, the principal would just carte blanche. I just ordered you. Oh, by the way, you're getting this program, and it's a complete new language arts program for K through 5, and nobody knew it was coming. Nobody knew why we were changing. No, yeah, you can't do it that way. You're going to get too much resistance. And if teachers don't feel like it meets the needs of their students, and they're not able to adjust it to meet their teaching style, they're not going to do it.
Right.
They're going to do something else. And you cannot be in every classroom every day. So I think the idea that the diocese is collecting that information, people are sharing it. We have quarterly, I guess, well, not quarterly, it's only happened 3 times, where we're getting the teachers together. So 5th grade teachers across the diocese are getting together and talking about what they're learning in science. Like, what are y'all using? What's working for you? What's not working for you? And that's kind of where we get the best ideas, is when the teachers come and tell us, can we try this?
And that's like alignment from like a from a diocesan level, or like,
yes,
whereas
that's
like
mandated professional development diocesan days.
And they do that how many times a year?
They do it before school starts. We did it in October. We did it in January, and we're going to do it again, I think, in April.
Okay. So last question, like in your time in your position, like you came in and like how much have you changed? Like how much have you come in and you're just like, not like over time, of course, because it takes time.
It.
You've changed, you've hit every subject area with new curriculum resources.
Oh, no. There was no there was no plan.
Right.
There was no calendar for evaluating and updating curricular resources.
Right.
And it was primarily based just on teacher need. So if a teacher didn't ask for anything, everything's fine. We don't have to worry about it, right? That only works if you, like I said, keep the same teachers all the time,
right,
that you trust their professional efficacy, that you know that they are keeping up with the latest, greatest. And but it doesn't help when you get a new teacher come in. So it's been, for me, because I've had to increase my budget each year over the last 4 years, it's been a struggle because we needed new everything.
Right. I remember my first year just like creating all my new lessons because I had a textbook that was over 20 years old, and so like that
textbook's still there, by the way.
Yeah. So like, I'm sure, and like I run into the same thing with technology. Like you wish you could do it all at once, but you have to piecemeal. Like if you could say you're a percentage through refreshing curriculum, would you give yourself a percentage, or are you like, hey, like let's say 100% means you've refreshed just about every resource you could that was out of date? Because some stuff you probably came into and it was still in date and still good, but like how much of the percentage of stuff that was like needed to be changed do you think you've been able to change so far?
In 5 years?
Yeah.
1, 2, probably 30%.
And is this?
And it could be closer to 50%,
mm-hmm,
but I've met resistance from teachers, because that's the other part. When you have people who have been in their position for a long time and everything is already created, everything's the way they want it, change is really, really traumatic and hard for them. And if they are reluctant and won't give you honest feedback when you give them resources to look at, then you're going to spend $70,000 on something they're not going to use. So it's getting that buy-in from them too.
Do you think that's a greater factor than funding at this point?
For me?
Yeah.
For our school? Heck
yeah.
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 Our president is focused on making sure that our students have everything they need to achieve success, right?
Right.
And that includes paying teachers a fair wage. That includes making sure that we have up-to-date curricular materials, all of those things. So I think that if I said, can you find me that, we have an endowment, we
right,
have opportunities that a lot of Catholic schools do not have. But I know, just because I've been doing this a few years, that you get varying degrees of teacher participation with a new curriculum, right? Some people will jump on it, and there's a kind of like maybe 2 or 3 year period where they do 1/5 of it for the first year, the next year they'll add on to it, and they'll add the things that are meaningful to them. So then we have to have a conversation about, okay, that's fine, but I need you to make sure that you're teaching this part
Right.
that is directly, you can take out other stuff, you can add in other stuff, but this has to be included. And that's kind of what I had to do with our math curriculum. I'm like, no. That's fine, because people, if you've relied on worksheets for a long time, that's a hard thing to get away from.
Right.
But nope, you have to use these 3 pieces, and there should be manipulatives on the desk they don't need manipulatives. Nope. Manipulatives on the desk every time, right? So I know what research says, you know what your anecdotal experience has been, and I'm going to go with what research says.
All right. Thank you. That was awesome.
Awesome.